At every defining, decisive moment of truth in America's history, it has been young people who have stepped up to the challenge. When we faced Nazi Germany in World War II, though it was Franklin Delano Roosevelt who led this country, it was young men who were willing to board trains that took them to ships that crossed the Atlantic, to transports that would cross the Channel, who on the 6th of June 1944 landed at Normandy on D-Day to save not just this country, but the world, to make sure that it was free and safe for democracy going forward. We are the inheritors, the heirs of their service and their sacrifice. Those young people who stepped up to serve when it counted more than it had ever counted for before. I think about those in the 1950s and 1960s who led the civil rights marches, the freedom riders in the Deep South, those who followed John Lewis across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, the students at North Carolina A&T in Greensboro who on February 1st, 1960 had the courage and audacity to go into a Woolworth's lunch counter and order a cup of coffee, knowing that they would be denied service based on the color of their skin, and yet not allowing that to stop them showing up the next day and every day thereafter until they had integrated that lunch counter and inspired young people across this country, including those in Birmingham, Alabama, who in 1963 left schools and classrooms just like the one here in Des Moines and started marching the streets of Birmingham so that they and their parents would be treated like human beings and equal citizens in their own country. The police who met them with German shepherds, met them with fire hoses that could peel the bark off of trees and blasted the clothes off of those kids. 1,200 young people, as young as 12 years old, were arrested on the first day of that children's crusade. But it is to them, and those freedom riders, and those who integrated the places of public accommodation that we owe the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Though Lyndon Baines Johnson, my fellow Texan, signed it into law, it was the young people who forced the conversation and in fact forced the conscience of this country that are owed the credit. Y por último, Cesar Chavez, representing migrant farm workers, those who left their home country, their hometown, their family, their language, their culture, their customs, to start anew, strangers in a strange country, to do better for themselves and their families, just like any of us want to do better for ourselves and our families, but also to do better for all of us. Those in the vanguard of that front in the civil rights fight were so often young people, willing to serve and struggle and sacrifice and make sure that this country came a little closer to living up to its ideals, that all of us are created equal, to equal opportunity, equal treatment under the law, and equal opportunity to reveal their genius to the greater good of this country. We face just such a moment in this country right now, whether it is climate change, or gun violence, or access to higher education, or an economy that truly works for all, or health care as a right. Though there are those of us in positions of power or who contend for them right now who are my age or older, it's going to be the young people here in this room and across the country who forced us to do the right thing. Because I believe in you and your leadership, and do not think that you are the leaders of tomorrow, but you're the leaders right now of this moment, I'm here to introduce myself to you and to listen to what's on your mind, to bring your stories, your solutions, your ideas into this campaign and into the service that I want to provide as president. Thank you for having me out here today. Looking forward to what you have to say. Let's Y si se quieren preguntar en español, también podemos responder en español, también en inglés. Cynthia has a microphone. If you raise a hand, she'll bring it to you.
All right, here's our first question.
Eric.
How's it going? It's not my question for today. My question is what is your version of the American dream? What is your version of the American dream?
What's my version of the American dream? This, the greatest country the world has ever known, the largest economy on the planet, today, the most ingenious, innovative people on the planet right now, the world's largest, most powerful military. In every way that you can measure in the whole, we are the greatest that has ever existed. But my dream is that every single one of us in this country can participate in that greatness. And we don't have that in America today. We don't have that in America where there's 10 times the wealth in white America than there is in black America. We don't have that in America today where in kindergartens in my home state of Texas, 5-year-old children are 5 times as likely to be disciplined or suspended or expelled if they are children of color. We don't have that in America today where we have a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for women of color. We don't have that in America today where not all of us have equal access to the ballot box. Might be a little bit harder based on the color of your skin, maybe a little bit harder for those who are living with disabilities in this country right now. My dream is that everyone has a chance to reveal their genius, live up to their potential and their promise in this country, not only because it is going to be good for them, but because it's going to be great for all of us. The sooner that this country lives up to this idea that we are all created equal and forms that more perfect union that you've heard every single president talk about, by ensuring that our differences are not seen as disqualifying or dangerous or dysfunctional, but as the very source of our strength, our success, and our security. The sooner we do that, the sooner this country lives up to its full promise. I'll tell you this by way of conclusion to this answer. My hometown of El Paso, Texas, is part of the largest binational community in the world with sea lot wise. It is a city of immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees from the world over. And it is not despite that, but because of that fact that we are one of the safest cities in America today. We choose not only to tolerate our differences, but to fully embrace them. That is the secret of our success in El Paso. That is the secret of our future success of America. We just must all commit ourselves to realizing that and achieving that American dream. Thank you for asking the question.
Okay, here's the next question, and then we'll go back up there. You already answered it, so we're going to go here, and then we'll go back up there.
Hi, so my question is, with there being a lot of young people that are getting involved in this upcoming election, what are you going to do to keep them engaged?
I'm here right now. I'll be back here, not just at North, but at other high schools, community colleges, and other places where young people are, because as I made the case earlier, this is where the energy and the leadership is for this country at this defining moment of truth. When the principal introduced me and said that I won more votes than any Democrat had in the history of the state of Texas, it was in large part because young people turned out in record numbers. During early voting in Texas in 2018, we saw a 500% increase in young voter turnout. And on any issue that I could possibly care about, it was young people at town halls just like these who were getting in my face to force the conversation and the solutions that might be politically difficult, but are absolutely necessary if this country is going to be able to make it. On gun violence, going beyond universal background checks and these extreme risk protection orders, as important as they are, and making sure that we ban the sale of weapons of war and buy back every single one of them that is out there. On climate, making sure that we do not take half steps or half measures or only involve half the country, but all of us doing all that we can to meet this existential threat before it is too late. I'm not here to ask you to register to vote or even to vote. I'm here to listen to you, your ideas, and to be inspired by your leadership. So it's important to me not just as a candidate, but when we hold office to come back and to continue to renew the faith that we have in one another, the solutions that we will form in common, and the leadership that I'm looking to you to be able to provide. That is how we all stay engaged, not just in election time, but every day, every month, every year going forward. So you'll see us back. Thank you for having us out here today. Appreciate it.
So you said that you will ban the sale of guns, but then there will be a more popular demand to be sold illegally. Sell them illegally, then we don't have any control over who has them, and the more mentally sick that we think they are when they do a mass shooting, will have their hands on it. So why not just put in place a mental background check in every state and city before we sell it?
Thank you for the question. Couple of thoughts on this. I mentioned Iowa being 51st in access to mental health care. So we need to make sure that that is no longer the case, and anyone in any part of this country can get the help that they need to live to their full potential. But I think there is a myth that exists that gun violence can be attributed to mental health care challenges or those who need mental health care help. In fact, those who have a mental illness are more likely to be the victims than the perpetrators of gun violence in this country. In fact, we have 40,000 gun deaths every single year in America. It's a number not seen anywhere else in the world. And other countries have their challenges with mental illness, have violent video games, have popular entertainment that glorifies gun violence, and yet do not have anywhere close to the level of carnage that we see here in the United States of America. The country of Australia, after a sensational mass shooting, not only banned AR-15s, AK-47s. These are weapons that were originally designed and engineered and sold to the militaries of the world to kill people on a battlefield, because they are devastatingly effective at doing that. In Dayton, Ohio, on the 4th of August, 9 people were killed by a gunman with an AR-15 in under 40 seconds. In El Paso, Texas, on August 3rd, the day before, 22 killed by an AK-47 in under 3 minutes. When the Second Amendment was ratified and adopted, it took you 3 minutes to reload your firearm. There was no way that the framers of the Constitution, or those who wrote the Second Amendment, could have envisioned that we would sell weapons of war to one another in this country. Australia not only banned those weapons of war, but instituted a mandatory buyback and saw gun violence in that country drop significantly over the intervening years. So we know that this works. We know that it is possible. I know that it is politically difficult. And I know that we have to involve everyone in the conversation. We were just in an English classroom earlier where someone said, listen, I want to use that AR-15 that I own to hunt. So is there a way to include his concerns and perhaps a legitimate use for that firearm by ensuring that you can keep that AR-15 at a hunting club or at a gun range? I'm open to that idea. I want to have that conversation. But if we fail to take action on any of these provisions, then we are each complicit in the gun violence that is sure to continue. So I want to make sure that we do the right thing while we still have time to do the right thing. Thanks for asking the question.
So what is your thought about the LGBTQ community?
Thanks for asking the question. The question was, what is my thinking when it comes to the LGBTQ community? I was asked earlier by Eric about what's my version of the American dream, and I talked about making sure that everyone is included in it. I want to make sure that members of the LGBTQ community who are treated differently in this country than are other Americans are fully brought into the success and the greatness of this country. That means that in states like mine in Texas, where you can be fired based on your sexual orientation, or denied the ability to adopt because you're gay, or the fact that we debated a transgender bathroom bill in our state to try to scare parents about transgender kids in their schools, even though transgender children are far more likely to be the victims than the perpetrators of this attack. This challenge requires presidential leadership. And as president, I would make sure that I sign into law the Equality Act, which would guarantee the full civil rights and human rights of every single American. I would immediately reverse the transgender truth ban to say that we want the service of anyone in this country, who's willing to put their life on the line for America. And we will honor the service of anyone who has done so in the past. And I will speak with pride and celebrate the examples of how we come together despite our differences and how that makes us stronger as a country. And so I want to make sure that you know that as president. I want to make sure that we serve everyone and bring everyone in to the success of this country. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Here's your next question.
So, if you're gonna ban like arms, like with the Second Amendment, what are we gonna do like about self-defense and everything?
I couldn't hear the second part of your question.
Okay, so if you were planning to ban like arms and rifles and everything, what about the self-defense?
What about self-defense? So I remember being at a town hall like this in Wichita Falls, Texas. And this is just after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas high school shooting in Parkland, Florida. And a Vietnam-era veteran approached me at the end of the town hall. He said, look, I want to talk to you about guns. I had the military version of an AR-15 when I was in Vietnam. That young man in that high school who was hunting down kids in their hallways, in their classrooms, was better armed than I was when I was at war. And he said, I can tell you because I'm a hunter. I can tell you because I keep firearms in my home. You don't need an AK-47 or an AR-15 to hunt. You don't need one to defend yourself in your home. You need one to be able to go to war and kill someone at a battlefield. I talked to the trauma-based surgeons in El Paso who treated the victims of the Walmart shooting on August 3rd in El Paso. Many of them have served in the military and been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. They told me the injuries that they were seeing were exactly like the injuries that they treated out on the battlefield. There's one guy who is still in the hospital. Today, here we are at the end of October, was shot at the beginning of August. One round, one high-impact, high-velocity round from that AK-47 not only hit both of his kidneys, his liver, his spleen, his spine, his gallbladder. It hit his intestine in 3 different places. Because that's exactly what it is designed to do, to expend all of its kinetic injury inside of your body, to keep that enemy soldier down so they don't pose a threat to our soldier on that battlefield. So, look, I want to make sure that we clear up a misconception. I'm not talking about banning guns. I'm not talking about a mandatory buyback of guns. I'm talking about banning weapons of war. We wouldn't want you to have a bazooka or drive a tank down the street. We also don't want you to have an AR-15 or an AK-47, which is designed to kill people as effectively, as efficiently, in as great a number as possible. That's the distinction that I want to make. Thank you for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Straight back here.
So I have a question about college debt. Are you gonna get rid of it? Are you gonna change it? Or are you gonna just get just abandon it in general?
Thanks for the question. 2 ideas. One, let's stop accruing college debt in America. And so, under my administration, first 2 years of college would be absolutely free, meaning you earn that associate's degree or you're 2 years closer to a 4-year degree. 4 years of higher education, debt-free for lower income and middle income Americans, and debt-free, importantly, not just for tuition. Many presidential candidates are focused on that. But I think we all know that the true cost of higher education also includes room and board and books. Under our administration, debt-free for every single penny towards your higher education goals. And then the second part of my answer is that if you have part of the $1.5 trillion in outstanding student loan debt in this country, and you're willing to come teach or work in the support staff here at North, if you're willing to work in a VA to take care of our veterans who put their lives on the line for this country and are coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, the signature wounds of service and combat and war, then I want to completely forgive the outstanding student loan debt that you have. You commit to public service, we commit to you, so that you can focus on making this great country even greater. In that way, we address the access issue to higher education, the extraordinary level of debt that people are carrying, and we free this economy to really hit it at its full potential. Thanks for asking.
So here's my question for you. If you do become president, what do you see in the future?
I love this question. My youngest, who's 8 years old, about to turn 9 on Sunday, Henry. You got a Henry in your life? We were talking to him about the campaign a couple of months ago, about why I'm running for president. And he said, Dad, if you win, we get to live in El Paso, right? And I said, no, if we win, we would move to Washington, D.C. We would be in the White House. But I had told Henry earlier in the year about climate change, about the fact that El Paso is the second fastest warming city in the United States of America. And though this is unfair to do to an 8-year-old, I told him that where we live today will no longer support human life unless we change course. And so Henry, who internalized that, understood climate change probably better than our current president understands climate change. Said, if we win, and if we're able to do all the things that you've talked about, free ourselves from that dependence on oil and gas and coal, fully embrace renewable energy technology like wind here in Iowa or solar in West Texas, and the high-skill, high-value, high-wage jobs that come with that, then we will have averted this crisis and we can live in El Paso going forward. So I see us meeting the greatest set of challenges that we've ever faced. And though we bestow the title of the greatest generation on those who served in World War II, and they truly were great, I think this moment of maximum peril, whether it is climate, whether it is immigration, whether it is gun violence, whether it is healthcare, could produce the greatest generation of leadership that we've ever seen in the history of this country. So that is what I see going forward. A country defined not by its differences, known not by our fears, but our ambitions, our aspirations, and the resolve that we bring to overcoming them. Last idea. 1948, Harry Truman is on the last of his whistle stops in Texas, on his whistle stop tour for his re-election, against the odds, against the polls, and against a very formidable opponent. Here's one of the things that he said. This country was not built on fear. Instead, we were built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. That's the America that I see here in this auditorium today. That's the America that I want to serve by bringing people in and together at a very divided time to meet these challenges and to define our greatness for generations to come. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Hello, good morning. I have been in the mental health system since I was around 7. So my question to you is, as president, either statewide, statewide, giving some examples to Kim Reynolds, since we have the worst mental health system in this country, or countrywide, what will you do as president to help fight the stigma and help fight mental illness in America?
Thank you for the question. One, we're going to make sure that your ability to see a mental health care provider, a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist is not a function of luck or circumstance, but a guaranteed human right that you can depend on without a copay. So there are some who have insurance, but they're not guaranteed the care because they may not have the $120, which is the copay for their visit or their medication, so they don't go out and seek that care. You have states like mine in Texas, which is vying for the position that Iowa now holds as worst in the nation in mental health care access, where the largest provider of mental health care services in Texas today is the county jail system. The largest inpatient provider is the Harris County Jail in Houston, Texas. Means that people with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, clinical depression, far too often are literally getting arrested on purpose to go to the one place where they're guaranteed that care. Universal health care, including access to mental health care, is a great, important, big first step to resolving that. But here at this school, and at every public school in America, I want to make sure that in addition to focusing on world-class classroom instruction, we're also focused on the full social and emotional well-being of every single student here. There may be some students, because of the mixed immigration status of their families, are unable to seek health care outside of this school. If we ensure that there are therapists and providers in every single school in America, yes, that is a considerable investment, but yes, it produces a return well beyond the initial cost of making that investment. And it guarantees that no child, no woman, no man is denied the care or the help that they need to be able to rise to their full potential and reveal their full promise in this country. And it comes back to Eric's question about the American dream, making sure that literally every single one of us is fully able to participate in it. So thank you for raising the question, and in your question, removing some of the stigma associated with this. Very grateful to you.
And to the left of the room, and I have time for 2 more questions.
Ms. Gatto, I think the principal just told us we are last question. Yep.
Hello. You are obviously for equality and everything, and that's so great. However, there are almost 20 other Democrats running who have probably the exact same views as you, and I want to know what personally sets you apart from you.
Really good question. Thank you. A couple of thoughts. At a time that you have a president who seeks to scare us based on our differences, who wants to divide us as a country, who is using racism that he's brought out into the open and directing violence against some of the most vulnerable communities, including those of immigrants and those on the U.S.-Mexico border. That's exactly where I am from and where we are raising our kids. And I have an opportunity, I think, to tell a very powerful, positive, compelling message that immigrants are not a danger or a threat to this country. In fact, they're one of the best opportunities that America has right now. Being able to travel in what was thought to be a very red, very Republican state and bring people into their democracy, a state that had ranked 50th in voter turnout, bringing people in at record levels, not just Democrats, but Republicans and independents as well, and doing that on one of the most progressive agendas that anyone running for Senate has ever done. And then lastly, making sure that we bring everyone into this democracy. There is no candidate who has visited more high schools or more colleges than I have, held more town halls, had more conversations like these, intent upon bringing every single one of us into the conversation and into the solution. Y por último, last thing. I'm unafraid to say what needs to be said to ensure that this country realizes its potential. Whether it's addressing gun violence and some of the hard solutions that we have to pursue if we're going to address it, or calling out the structural, foundational, institutional racism in America that keeps some people down by law and keeps us as a country back from fulfilling our true promise as a nation. I will always be unafraid to stand up for those who have been maligned or marginalized and stand up against those like Donald Trump who use fear to drive us apart, divide us, and keep us from our greatness. Thank you for asking the question. Thank you all for being here. Very, very grateful. Thank you so much.